Hi, everybody, and welcome to Customer Conversations with BlueGator. I'm TJ Christensen, CEO of BlueGator, and I'm joined today with Margaux Pagan, Senior Director of Strategic Engagement at the Sharing Center. Margaux, thanks, and welcome to the Customer Conversation. Great to have you.
Yeah, thank you.
It would be great if you could just share a little bit about what the Sharing Center does for everyone out there.
Yeah, sure. The Sharing Center is a mid-sized organization in Central Florida that we focus on helping anyone that's experiencing hunger, homelessness, poverty in general. So we do that in a multitude of different ways, but our goal is to move people towards financial stability and economic mobility.
Awesome. And I love like how you guys are situated in your physical space, and you've got sort of
Mhm.
an old strip mall that you've repurposed for all these things. Could you just describe that for everybody? Because I think it's super cool.
Yeah, sure. So it's like a 36,000 square foot, like you said, strip mall. Normally what you would see at Big Lots or anything. And what we've done is convert it into a social services hub. So we have all of our different programs, our walk-in facilities. We have a distribution center, obviously our corporate office, but then we also have a retail side on one wing of it's an L-shaped plaza, and it's an opportunity for people to go directly to where they need, instead of trying to navigate more things that and more hurdles from a dire situation that they're going through. So kind of removing a lot of those barriers with just going straight to the front door of exactly the services that they need.
Yeah, that's awesome. Sounds like, one-stop shop, essentially, get all the services you need right there. Yeah, it's a really impressive facility. I love all the growth we've seen over the years, and where it's headed. So the sharing center, you mentioned, even just kind of rattling off the different components of what's in the retail center. You've got lots of different services that you're providing. How is the sharing center leveraging Salesforce?
We brought Salesforce on roughly about 4 years ago. I brought it on because I drank the Kool-Aid a long time ago and just knew that with the growth of the agency, it needed a system that could support um, just kind of the evolving changes, that we didn't even know what those changes were going to be at the time, but
Right.
knew that a more proprietary system would not be better fitting because it would end up either costing more or it would end up being too restrictive where you can't do this, but you can do these things. And so by adopting Salesforce, just kind of knew that we could evolve. Salesforce could evolve with the organization as it was growing.
Awesome. And like so there's when a lot of people talk about Salesforce, there's so much in Salesforce to even,
Mhm.
begin to tackle. So how specifically is the organization leveraging it, and what benefits is it providing different pockets of the organization, or the organization as a whole?
Yeah, so right now we utilize Salesforce for nonprofits, and it basically comes with your opportunities, your general objects, but then we also have built in some customization into that. So we started last year using engagement plans. Um, a couple of years ago using the volunteer module in a more automated way. And we use the grants module. We are now moving towards adopting the program module and the case management module. So again, just kind of building on top of the base of
Mhm.
Salesforce. In order to be things that we track are obviously giving, volunteer hours. We have roughly about 5,400 active volunteers. So obviously, we need a very robust system to be able to track all of that, especially for grant applications, making sure that our volunteer hours are accurate. Um, we, again, are moving towards a more streamlined program model. And so, with that, that's kind of prompting the adoption of the program module as well as the case management module. We've been able to just kind of um, grow with how we're leveraging the existing objects and the existing pieces of Salesforce,
Yeah.
but in a more automated way, because as our as we grow, our team doesn't necessarily grow in the same pace.
Right.
And so, yeah, so by adding in these automations or adding in these, additional customizations, we're able to at least start to get a full breadth idea. Our donor base has grown from, I think we were at about 10,000 when we did the first implementation, and now we're at over 23,000 in the last 4 years.
Wow.
And so our team hasn't really grown too much to be able to manage all of those relationships one to one. And
Yeah.
so by adding in that additional component, adding in additional components, we're able to at least start to see, exactly who, what, when, where, why, and how our donor base wants to hear from us, or what sort of relationships need to be moved up the pipeline, and so forth.
Yeah, and I love, like, you talk about, using Salesforce as a way to do more with less, essentially. And we see that a lot with a lot of organizations we work with, and specifically on the nonprofit side. It's always a case of, how can we do more with less, and we can't get justification for another headcount or full-time person, or you're working with volunteers and things like that to accomplish your mission. And it's an admirable pursuit for sure. I think where we initially came in working with the Sharing Center was on the volunteers project.
Mhm.
You guys put out an RFP that I think we responded to, and started to work on that. And I would love if you could just tell a little bit of a story about that volunteers project and how that helped with you guys being able to, because I can't remember, I don't want to misstate, but I thought it was something like, once we had everything automated, it was saving like 40 hours of work or something crazy like that. But if
Yeah.
you could talk a little bit about what you guys were doing, and then what you ended up moving towards, and how you were able to save all those hours, I think that would be super valuable for folks looking for areas to just sort of like get rid of paperwork and automate some stuff. I think it's a great example of that.
Yeah, so I would say before BlueGator, we were using clipboards and roster papers
Right.
in our various different departments. Again, keep in mind we are across 36,000 square feet, and so each department had a clipboard where volunteers were requested to sign in and sign out, but not everyone did, and nor could you legibly read handwriting all the time, especially for new volunteers. We didn't really know who that was. We also have student and court-ordered volunteers as well, where it is more critical that we're able to actually track their hours against what they're, slated to serve with us.
Mhm.
And so there was a lot of different issues, as you could imagine, with the clipboard method. And so I started doing some research about the way that other organizations are leveraging Salesforce in order to track hours. And I came across this one organization, I want to say that they were out of Minnesota, that built a portal, more or less, a clock in, clock out system, um, where volunteers, again, would clock in, clock out. Um, and sorry, I'm just going to go backwards. All of those pieces of paper had to be manually entered in by another volunteer, who also had to sign in and sign out on a clipboard and track their own hours basically within the system. And it just got so inundated with um, time.
Mhm.
As you can imagine, like going to each person's record, adding a new volunteer hour, making sure that everything's correct, making sure that you are even on the right, profile, the right supporter profile, because again, there could be a Sarah Smith, and which Sarah Smith is that? And so by we received a grant from the Florida Volunteer Florida, and it was actually driven to produce a capacity building opportunity for a nonprofit to support the volunteer program. And then that's our relationship. That's when our relationship with BlueGator, the RFP,
Yeah.
began. And so what we did is we worked together very closely to design this clock in, clock out system, both from a physical standpoint, so what's going to happen on our campus, but then also within Salesforce. Um, and so it took us probably, I want to say, about 6 months, 4 to 6 months to like design what that actually looked like, what the automatic emails are going to be sent out, creating those emails as well. So the back end engagement pieces where, somebody clocks in for the first time, welcome, thank you so much for volunteering with us. And then after so many shifts are served and kind of again moving them down the engagement track. But it all started with the clock in, clock out system, and then also the training. So with any new technology, of course, there's training, and a little bit of pushback. Our volunteers sometimes skew a little bit older and, they like the old way. Why are we changing it? And so we had several training sessions and just kumbaya moments, if you will, and to let everyone know how important it was that we were moving forward. And so like we ended up having our volunteers who were originally and they loved this opportunity. We ended up taking them out to lunch and everything before we made the actual switch, or bringing lunch in actually. But we made sure that they had a role within the organization that they would be using, because we did take away about 40, a 40-hour FTE role within our volunteer jobs.
Mhm.
We had 2 to 3 volunteers every single week to enter in this data. And sometimes we were 2 to 3 weeks behind, the actual date of
Right. Yeah.
service. And so, between those two pieces, we wanted to make sure that our volunteers as well were very comfortable with moving into another area. We didn't want to make them feel like we were just removing them, because again, a staff person was not doing this. And so I just think that that's so important when you're looking at transitioning into a new technology, is understanding that people connect to the work that they're doing,
Yeah.
or and everything. And so that switch, I would say probably we started that at the very beginning when we started this project, so that once we did, turn the triggers on and everything was active, that we had a much more smoother transition into, okay, now so and so is going to serve in, this department, and welcome them, and
Yeah.
everything, so that it wasn't like, oh, I'm not going to serve with you anymore because I wanted to do this. And so we kind of worked in tandem with the technology part, the engagement part, but then also the people management aspect as well. So I mean, people love it now. It's quite amazing how someone will come in and they'll say, "Oh, I just clocked in. I'll see you later," and it's just like the paper never existed.
Right. Right. Yeah. Those are, you're like, well, you should have been here a couple years ago when, we were chasing you down with
Yeah,
clipboards and pens. Yeah.
yeah.
That's funny. So Sharing Center actually also leverages Marketing Cloud. And
Mhm.
I think a lot of folks for the size organization that you all are, a lot of folks would be like, well, Marketing Cloud is maybe too heavy of an email application. I'll use, maybe MailChimp or Constant Contact or something like that. Talk a little bit about the decision to move towards Marketing Cloud and what that's done for the organization, and what you really like about working within that module as it's connected to Salesforce.
Yeah, that right there is probably the biggest reason why Marketing Cloud spoke to us more so than a MailChimp. We were using MailChimp prior
Hmm.
to Marketing Cloud, which is funny because the acronyms are both MC, so we didn't have to change much on the back end. Um, but we just made the decision to move towards Marketing Cloud because we needed additional overview, or in like basically a 360-degree view of how our supporters are engaging with us. And so being able to look within a donor's record to see, okay, they've opened the last, 17 emails, or being able to know what journey they're on, within the, complete landscape of everything that we're sending out, not just if you're a volunteer, not just if you're a donor, and then building, so I just mentioned the journeys, building out those journeys so that we understand, how somebody's relationship with us grows or declines, or what are people responding to more,
Yeah.
people connecting with us on social media. are people who volunteering, are they now giving as a result of these, automated journey communication pieces that are being sent to them? Um, outside of campaigns, I think as a nonprofit, you can get kind of stuck in the seasonal campaign, your end of the year campaign,
Hmm.
your newsletters, your typical kind of month to month communications calendar, that you forget that people don't work seasonally, like just humans. Like we're not
Yeah.
necessary, if I wanted to call TJ up and just say hi to him and hey, I have a really funny story for you that I think you're gonna like, it's because we've developed a relationship with each other. But again, because staff time, I can't, necessarily assign our philanthropy officers or our gift officers to call 400 people,
Hmm.
in a week and say a certain message or, kind of make a different connection. And so by utilizing Marketing Cloud, we've been able to kind of take that grunt work um, out of the beginning parts of the pipeline and begin to identify who now needs to go towards a personal touch because of their open rates, because of their just connectivity throughout, because that they've decided to make a decision as a result of one of those, increase their giving or whatever that action is that they decided to take. Now we can identify them as, okay, this is potentially someone who needs a more personal touch. And so Marketing Cloud is allowing us to do that on top of our wealth screening software as well. So the two combined really help us to better identify those people, again, who need to kind of move up the ladder, whatever that next step is for them.
Yeah, so it sounds like it's a blend of a couple things, right? It's a traditional sort of Salesforce for nonprofits, sort of donations and development engagement plan, well, process plus engagement plans that you're building, right?
Mhm.
Interwoven with automated email communication and sort of also augmented by the wealth screening. What I'm just curious. I
Mhm.
don't think I actually know what wealth screening tool do you use at Sharing Center?
We use iWave.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it's built on top. So again, within one portal, we can see Marketing Cloud data, we can see iWave information, and again, it's a one look. Again, working with BlueGator, we actually did create as well, like a donor profile page where it's kind of a summary of their giving tracks. Again, the Marketing Cloud information, contact information, of course. And again, right next to that is the iWave information. So we're able to see, I think we renamed some of the tabs. So it's like, I think it's like related and details is the out of the box. And so
Hmm.
we added a summary page that kind of summarizes with tables. Again, they can earn badges. So we'll have a badge for volunteer, a giving society, if they belong to a giving society, and the other involvements that they have, that they're a goods donor, so on and so forth. So basically, if somebody has a full row of badges, then we're able to see, okay, this person is very involved with us. They have an affinity to the Sharing Center. We know what affinity program, towards our programs that they have, and so
Hmm.
forth. So that, when BlueGator kind of helped us put that profile together, that also has helped us with quickly being able to identify, okay, this person needs to be assigned to a gift officer, or this person is on the right track to move in that direction.
Yeah, and I think just being able to quickly visually identify, when you pull someone up and be able to not have to look anywhere and right away see like, hey, this is a super engaged person. I need to be, you should always bring your A game, but you know what I mean? There's like that
Yeah.
the extra level of touch and awareness when you have someone that's sort of touching your organization across all these different aspects. And I think that's
Mhm.
that's super cool, and not having to go and dig and find that anywhere or have to click around to sort of see
Mhm.
that is really neat. So as far as where Sharing Center is going, what's on the horizon for the Sharing Center or in the next few years?
So again, the program module and the case management module, I think is the next build to kind of tackle.
And could you talk a little bit about what each one of those are, just for folks that maybe aren't
Yeah,
as familiar?
yeah. So the way that I understand it, so we have there's two components to supporting our programs through
Hmm.
Salesforce. Is we have the overarching program model, which will help us trend impact metrics, help us know how many clients we're serving, where those clients are coming from, demographic information, so on and so forth, so that we're able to create or align the program against its goals. And then the case management module is kind of works side by side with it,
Hmm.
where the case managers actually manage specific clients. And so, again, they can put them on deliverable tracks. So, okay, what's the next step? If it's to, let's say, for instance, they're working with someone who just received an eviction notice and because of a lost job. So what our case managers will now work with them on is, are they going to be moving into our workforce development program? Do we have any resume writing assistance or different connectivity, connections that we can make within the community from our partner, corporations, et cetera, in order to find out if we can help them find a higher paying job so that so that the financial crises doesn't happen again. And so that's what the case management module
Mm.
will help support is the one-to-one relationship, whereas the program module is kind of um, pulling in all of that and figuring out are our programs as impactful as they can possibly be.
Very cool. Um, what are you most excited about in like, there's always lots of news around Salesforce and new tools and tricks and things like that. What are you most excited about in the Salesforce ecosystem?
Yeah, so I would say the journey maps. As an engagement experience, type of professional, I would definitely say the journey maps because there's no end to them.
Yeah.
I would possibly say, so we started off building the preliminary new, kind of new entry point
Hmm.
journeys, and then what does that look like when they're, just going through
Yeah.
kind of thing, and then bridging them all together. And so one of the things that I have expressed to the team is, okay, so now next level is tiering. So let's say, for instance, so we have three ways of how someone engages with us. So either giving monetarily, giving financially, volunteering, or donating goods. And so those are kind of like our primary ways to give, if you will. And so if somebody starts off volunteering and now they're donating goods, then I would call that um, a two-tier person.
Hmm.
And now if somebody's volunteering, donating goods, and giving financially, then that's a three-tier. And so our goal is to move as many people as we can into a three-tier relationship with us, because then that is going to be what prompts loyalty. And so with that, we can then move them, we can start to design journey maps where it's, you know, this is for the three-tier folks, this is for the two-tier folks, this is for the
Hmm.
one-tier folks, and not just segmenting by giving level or, the recency frequency monetary model or, so on and so forth. So it's like branching off into this larger um, place. And again, which is why I absolutely love the addition of Marketing Cloud, because although MailChimp, I think, did introduce journeys into their port
Hmm.
platform, it doesn't cleanly, come into Salesforce. So we're able to see that like actually full 360-degree view. Um, I'm interested to see what other additions Salesforce comes out for to support nonprofits,
Hmm.
because it is such a different sphere in the sense of like how we use it. I would love to see Salesforce come up with an events module. That would be absolutely, I know that it's not necessarily Salesforce's bailiwick, but Um, that would be really awesome, to support the galas and have everything again in one giving space. Yeah, so just kind of excited to see how it continues to grow. I've been working with Salesforce since before, I mean, since I mean, I guess it's called Classic now, but
Yeah.
and so just all of those different advancements that Salesforce is making in its bigger, ecosystem, bringing those over into the nonprofit and figuring out which ones are, translatable, but then making it easier for nonprofits, especially small and mid-sized nonprofits, that usually adopt Salesforce because of the 10 free licenses that
Hmm.
nonprofits receive. And so then, like right now, we adopted it with the 10 free licenses, and right now we have like 24 licenses. So eventually you end up paying for the licenses.
Right.
Um, and yeah, just trying to make it easier for implementation or, again, working with like companies like BlueGator who kind of walk alongside the full process, but are bringing in, like stellar expertise
Hmm.
alongside because nonprofits usually don't have IT departments. We don't have a Salesforce developer. We don't have, a CRM person necessarily all the time. So, yeah, I would just like to see like how Salesforce is coming into this space, but then producing solutions that don't need that aren't all heavy lifts.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how obviously the hot topic right now is GPT and how they're sort of infusing that across the products and things like that. And I think that will hopefully, kind of do some of the things that you mentioned on, being able to help with making it a little easier to implement and administer and all sorts of things like that across the different products within the Salesforce ecosystem. Um, I guess my final question would be for nonprofits that are considering a move to Salesforce or evaluating, other alternatives in the market and things like that. What advice would you give them on, maybe you've talked a lot about the pros of Salesforce, but maybe, hey, if you're looking at it, here's some things that I would sort of make sure I'm thinking through, or just all in, jump in, or how to maybe step into it. Because I think some people get a little bit overwhelmed with all that there is to do across the Salesforce ecosystem, or just even in one cloud. There's just so much. The functionality is so deep. I'd love it if you could share a little bit about what advice you would give to other nonprofits that are considering, maybe moving to Salesforce.
Yeah, I would definitely say pace yourself. It is a massive system. There is no there are no there's no container really to it.
Yeah.
If you think of something that could potentially benefit your business model, then you could probably have it supported within Salesforce. So the way that I would suggest like walking into the Salesforce is for a nonprofit specifically is get your 10 free licenses. Um,
Yes.
Start off with the bare bones. So as it comes, customize the fields, customize, the basics first. So for instance, like we changed opportunities over to donations, that level of customization. Um, just figure out which modules that you're going to use. So to start out, so again, the volunteer module, the MPSP, so on and so forth. And then create a roadmap for what you envision over the next 3 years because you you can't I would say for especially for a nonprofit anything beyond 3 years you'll end up getting too overwhelmed
Yeah.
um, and just kind of look forward, look for grant opportunities as well that will support capacity building opportunities with your technology because that would help curb some of the plans or some of the ideas or growth that you have within your systems. And I would say alongside find a partner like a BlueGator, um, like BlueGator because they're awesome, but you know, find a partner where you can brainstorm because your internal team is really going to be your internal team and they're going to be looking at it from one perspective. But I can say our relationship with Blue Gator has been really amazing because we've been able to toss back ideas or what if this, what if that, okay, if this, then that.
Mhm.
um, and having that expertise, because again, a Salesforce developer, an individual contractor could potentially run you, $300 an hour. Um, and, to have that person on staff, and most organizations cannot support paying anyone $300 an
Right.
hour as their base salary. And so again, working alongside, a Salesforce partner will definitely help you move towards accomplishing like that 3-year roadmap. And then, every year just kind of look at, okay, what's the next thing? How else can we create this? Because ideally you would want Salesforce to be your primary source of data. And so just growing towards that with integrations, with automations, just again, taking out, potentially manual labor that your organization is focused on, and just kind of look at all those pain points throughout your organization and do discoveries and, just sit down and talk to people. What's your pain point? Because in my experience, some of them, the more out of the box, they were so limiting with
Mm.
where we could go with it, or it was astronomically more expensive um, to do any sort of custom developments or even a custom report. I've worked with, other CRMs, and we had to pay to get a custom report made. I didn't understand that because we should be able to build our own reports, but they were so proprietary that they had to build it for us. Um, and so just kind of setting out your plan, really. Yes, you can just simply apply, get your licenses, start working in it. But if you really want to leverage Salesforce, you have to have a plan in place.
Yeah, and I think, it, you said it well, it's about setting the foundation, right? And you don't have to overcomplicate it. It can be
Mm,
mild customizations out of the box and then finding someone to walk along that journey with you. And I think some of the things that we've done over the time that we've worked together is like, okay, let's focus on the
mm,
highest value wins for the organization, right? They might not be the biggest lifts. So having someone to help sort of be an an advocate for your organization, like you're an advocate for your organization about, okay, how do we find the right areas to attack for
mhm.
automation, for labor savings, for streamlined reporting, all of those things. Because you're right, if you and I think some people maybe get a little bit nervous about the word roadmap, like, oh my gosh, that's going to be, it literally can be like, we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, then we're going to do this, we think, right?
Exactly.
I think it'd be high
Exactly.
level. It's just, hey, what do we think the foundational elements of what we want to do are?
Mm,
Here are the three things. Let's do these first. Let's measure, you know, how, and sometimes measurement can be intimidating, but what does it feel like after that? Does it feel like it's easier? Are we
mhm.
able to get the reporting that we need? I remember for you guys on
Exactly.
the volunteer stuff, the reporting that you had to run for grants and things like that, it was taking forever. And
Hmm.
then being able to, because it was now automated, that was part of the change. Hey, we gotta automate this so that we can just press a button and get the reports, and the
Hmm.
flexible Salesforce, how flexible the reporting is on Salesforce, as long as it's in there, you basically get to it. Um, it doesn't have to be like this big, complicated, big bang, really complicated deployment. You just say, okay, we're just going to attack a few simple initiatives that are going to provide really high value for the organization. And
Hmm.
that's going to give us momentum of innovation. I think, Margaux, a credit to you and your team. That's where you guys have done a really good job of, like, we're able to deliver, innovation to the organization. And that's helped it move forward at a much faster pace than what it would otherwise chasing people around with clipboards.
Yes. Yes, because when we started the volunteer clock in, clock out system, we had about 1,200 active volunteers. and now we have about 5,400. And that growth is also because of the entry point. We removed some entry point barriers, if you
Yeah.
will, and getting people started to volunteer. And somebody can start volunteering now in 10 minutes. Um, and so having that reduced amount of time and just the overall ease of it all has been very, very helpful.
Yeah. And think about the impact of that, like growing just the volunteer base from 1,500 to 5,400, and what that, I can imagine what that does for your donor base, and just
Mhm.
the advocacy of the sharing center in the Longwood community. You got so many more people involved in what you're trying to do. Just if you look at just like, well, yeah, there's volunteer growth, but you think about the ripple effects of that across the community,
Mhm.
it's really impressive. And we've talked about this before, like just we really enjoy working with the sharing center and feel like we've been, sort of sucked in is not the right word, but we've definitely been pulled in.
Drink the Kool-Aid.
That's right. We drank the sharing center Kool-Aid, and just love the work that you guys are doing. And I think, being able to, again, focus on the right things, set foundation, not overcomplicated, look for the big wins, has really helped propel the organization, and you guys are doing a great job. So, thank you so much for this time and sharing a little bit about the sharing center journey and where you all are headed. So thank you.
Thank you.